the principality, Jagier, of Sardhana. Begum Samru.
Imagine an India where the Mughal Empire is still alive, but barely breathing. The throne in Delhi still exists. The emperor still wears the crown. Palaces still glitter. Nobles still whisper behind silk curtains. But outside those walls, armies are moving. Marathas, Rohillas, Jats, Sikhs, Europeans, mercenaries, the East India Company. Everybody wants a piece of Hindustan. And in the middle of this chaos, a woman appears who seems completely out of place. She is not born a princess. She does not inherit a throne from her father. She does not command an army because tradition says she should. Her early life is associated with Delhi's world of professional dancing and courtesans. Her name is Farzana Zeba Nissa. History would eventually remember her as Begum Samru. A woman who would command soldiers, negotiate with emperors, survive mutiny, fight on battlefields, convert to Catholicism, build one of North India's most remarkable churches, and accumulate a fortune so enormous that even generations after her death, people were still arguing over it. But here is the question. How does a young woman from the margins of 18th century Delhi become the ruler of Sardhana? And how does she survive when men with armies, titles, and royal blood are destroying each other around her? This is not simply the story of a queen. It is the story of a survivor. A strategist. A political chameleon. And perhaps one of the most fascinating women of 18th century India. This is the extraordinary story of Begum Samru. To understand Begum Samru, we first have to understand the Delhi into which she was born. This was not the calm, majestic Delhi often imagined from paintings. The Mughal Empire was entering its twilight. The emperor in Delhi possessed enormous symbolic power, but actual control over the subcontinent was slipping away. Regional powers were rising. Maratha armies were expanding. Rohilla chiefs were fighting for influence. Jats and Sikhs were becoming powerful. And European military adventurers were discovering something very profitable. India's political chaos could be turned into a career. A talented soldier with a few hundred trained men could sell his military services to a prince. A commander could change sides. A mercenary could become a governor. And sometimes, a woman could become a ruler. Farzana's precise birthplace and early family circumstances are described differently in historical sources. Some accounts connect her family with the Meerut region, while traditions preserved at Sardhana describe her father as Latif Ali Khan and place her childhood around Kotana before she moved to Delhi. What is much clearer is what happened next. Farzana entered the world of the Nautch, the professional dancing and entertainment culture of 18th century North India. And then came the man who would change her life. A European mercenary named Walter Reinhardt. He was older. He was experienced. He was dangerous. And he commanded soldiers. Their meeting would create a partnership that would eventually shake the politics of North India. But nobody could have predicted where that partnership would lead. Not even Farzana herself. Walter Reinhardt was not a traditional Indian nobleman. He was a European adventurer who had made his fortune through military service. In India during this period, men like Reinhardt could rise with astonishing speed. European drill. Indian soldiers. Modern firearms. Artillery. Discipline. And most importantly, loyalty that could sometimes be purchased. Reinhardt eventually commanded a powerful mercenary force. His name became associated with the word Sombre, which Indian pronunciation transformed into something closer to Samru. That name would later become legendary. Farzana became associated with Reinhardt and his military household. And this is where her story becomes much more interesting than a simple romance. She was not merely standing beside a soldier. She was living inside a military machine. She saw officers negotiate. She saw commanders plan campaigns. She watched rulers make promises and break them. She learned how power actually worked. And she learned something that would become the secret weapon of her future. Information is power. Farzana spoke languages including Hindustani and Persian, and accounts describe her as intelligent, socially skilled, and politically perceptive. While men around her were often obsessed with battlefield glory, she was learning the invisible battlefield. Who could be trusted? Who wanted money? Who wanted land? Who wanted revenge? Who wanted recognition from the Mogul emperor? And who was secretly preparing to betray everyone? The young woman who had entered Reinhardt's world was absorbing all of it. Then, in 1778, everything changed. Walter Reinhardt died. And suddenly, his army had a problem. Who would command it? His widow? A woman? Farzana? The answer would shock the political establishment. When Walter Reinhardt died in 1778, he left behind soldiers, territory, money, and a succession problem. His military force included European officers and Indian troops. In a world where command was overwhelmingly male, one might expect the army to fall apart. Instead, something remarkable happened. The soldiers accepted Farzana. The Mughal Emperor Shah Alam II recognized her position, and she became ruler of the Jaghir of Sardhana. This was the moment Farzana stopped being merely the companion of a powerful man. She became a power in her own right. And Sardhana was no insignificant possession. Located near Meerut, it gave her land, revenue, and a strategic base. But her real strength was the army. She inherited a professionally trained military force. Imagine the scene. A small woman appearing before battle-hardened soldiers. European officers around her. Indian infantry. Artillery. Cavalry. And a ruler in Delhi watching closely. If she failed, everything could collapse. If she succeeded, she could become indispensable. She chose the second option. Over the following decades, Begum Samru developed a reputation for political intelligence and military leadership. She was not simply sitting inside a palace signing documents. She was involved in the turbulent politics of the Mughal court. And the Mughal emperor needed people like her. Because Delhi's enemies were multiplying. One of the most dramatic chapters of her career was about to begin. The Mughal throne itself was in danger. And Begum Samru was about to discover that saving an emperor could make a woman incredibly powerful. But it could also make her incredibly dangerous. Shah Alam II was emperor of the Mughals. But by the late 18th century, being emperor did not necessarily mean being safe. The imperial court had become a battlefield of intrigue. Powerful nobles fought each other. Regional commanders challenged authority. And Delhi could change hands through military pressure. Begum Samru became one of the emperor's valuable military allies. Historical accounts associate her forces with campaigns in support of Shah Alam II during moments of crisis. Her role in the events surrounding Delhi in the 1780s helped establish her reputation as someone the emperor could rely upon. And the emperor rewarded loyalty. She received prestigious titles and recognition. One title associated with her was Zeb-un Nissa, often translated as Jewel Among Women. Think about what that meant. A woman who had begun her life far from a royal throne was now moving inside the Mughal political establishment. But there was a darker side. The more useful she became, the more people feared her. A woman commanding soldiers was already unusual. A woman who could influence an emperor was even more dangerous. And rumors began to grow around her. Some people portrayed her as almost supernatural. There were stories that she possessed extraordinary powers. That she could intimidate enemies. That her cloak itself was somehow capable of destroying them. Of course, these stories belong to the world of legend, not verified military science. But legends reveal something important. People were struggling to explain her power. They could understand a male general. They could understand a prince. But a woman commanding troops? That required a different explanation. So history gave her another weapon: fear. And Begum Samru was only getting started. Farzana. Joanna. Begum Samru. 3 names. One extraordinary life. She began in 18th century North India, far from the conventional path to royalty. And inside that story is a woman who began as Farzana and became Begum Samru. The dancing girl. The commander. The diplomat. The Catholic ruler. The survivor. The queen who refused to disappear. Some queens inherit kingdoms. Begum Samru built hers. END.
Golden syrup spills across the bay, where the turquoise waters fade.